Hello there everybody, how's it going? It's Jessie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff here on FlossTube, and I am coming to you on this Friday, December 22nd, 2023 with a new video. Hi everybody! So before I get into everything, welcome everybody. Welcome to both my returning viewers as well as anybody who is new here. There have been quite a few new people subscribing to my channel, and so thank you all so very much. It is WIPGO planning season, and so I expect that that's where a bunch of y'all are finding me, but thanks for coming and checking me out. Real quick intro into me. My name is Jessie. I have gone by Jessie Marie since my book blogging days. Because there was already a Jessie Reads blog, and so I created Jessie Marie Reads, and that's kind of been my internet persona ever since. Fun fact, I don't know if everybody knows that, but anyway, that's where the Jessie Marie comes from. I live in Virginia with my husband, Danny, and our daughter, who is affectionately referred to on the internet as Baby Does Stuff, even though her 3rd birthday is coming up. Let's all just take a moment. We got to get through the holiday season before I can start thinking about her birthday and before I can start processing that. But nonetheless, yep, we have Baby Does Stuff. We live in Virginia. Both my husband and I are Virginia Tech alum, and so I oftentimes will talk about Virginia Tech. I started stitching pretty much on a whim in 2013. A book blogging friend of mine posted about her cross stitch, and my interest was picked, and so I ordered one of those Dimensions Learner Crafts from Amazon, and the rest is history. And now I have 90 whips and yeah, I haven't stopped since. A lot of what I stitch, a lot is full coverage, but I dabble in all of the things. More modern aesthetic, some reproduction samplers, definitely some fancy ladies in my whips. I kind of dabble in it all, which can be problematic because there's not enough time for everything, right? I mean, there's just never enough time. But anyway, so that's me. I created WIPGO unofficially in 2019. It was the first time that I played. And then I opened it up to the world in 2020. And we are gearing up and getting ready for WIPGO 2024, which will officially kick off on Monday. So I'm sure that that's where a bunch of you are discovering my channel, and so welcome everybody. So this video today is not going to be a typical update. It's been about 7 weeks since I last filmed an update. In November, I got COVID, and I got a pretty bad case of it. I was pretty sick for a long time, and I was coughing a lot, and then when the coughing was done, it sounded like it sounded bad. We'll put it that way. And then December, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but for me, it's like I wake up on December 1st and I'm like, oh, I've got a ton of time. And then I blink and it's, oh no, where did it go? And so we're at that stage. We're at, oh no. And so I have worked on so many projects in the last 7 weeks that I cannot possibly share them all. So here's the plan. Today, we're going to talk about plans. We're going to talk about my plans for the rest of December, so essentially the rest of the year. I'm going to talk about some concrete plans for 2024. So I have a few things that I know I'm going to be starting in the early parts of 2024. And I'm going to talk about my WIPGO for 2024 because I've got my board ready to go. I've had it ready for some time, but I was waiting for this video before I dispelled it with everybody else. And so I'm gonna show you my WIPGO boards, but we'll get into it. Also, in amongst my plans is I'm going to film a full WIP parade, an end of year WIP parade. It's time. I haven't done like a full WIP parade since end of summer, early fall 2021. So it's been over 2 years since I've done a full WIP parade. And so it's time. Plus, you know, it's been 7 weeks and I'm not showing you any of the projects that I've worked on in that time. And so I think that an end of year WIP parade, I think it's a good time. I am highly daunted because like I said, I've got 90 91, maybe 92 whips. Yeah. So I'm a little daunted, but I'm also just really excited to do that. Plus, my plan for the year 2023 was to work on all of my whips, and by the time I'm able to film said whip parade, I will have worked on all of my whips this year, which I haven't been able to do in some time. So that's very exciting. I'll be able to show you something that I have put in at least a little bit of progress since my last whip parade, so that's pretty cool. Because it's a whip parade, I've had 2 finishes in the last 7 weeks that like aren't gonna get shown in that whip parade. That's not gonna fly. That's not gonna work for me. So let me talk to you about the finishes that I have had in the last 7 weeks. When I was recovering from COVID, it took me a long time to shake the brain fog. And so stitching, it took a while for me to get back to stitching. And so when I was finally mentally able to start stitching again, I started something and stitched it start to finish. So what I worked on is, this is Stitchers for Peace by Yasmin's Made with Love. And since October 7th, I have been thinking about and trying to stay in it and stay in paying attention to the news coming out of the Gaza Strip and Palestine and what is happening to the Palestinian people. And I've had a tough time trying to figure out how to channel my helplessness. Stitching solves nothing. I mean, stitching this it's not changing anything. Except for me, it helps me stay centered, and it helped me stay out of total helplessness. It helped me process my thoughts. It helped me process my feelings. And so this was really, truly very therapeutic. And so I stitched it start to finish. I thought I might put it down and progressively work on it, but I couldn't stop. I kept going. I have every intention of stitching more Palestinian leaning designs, but I started with this one and it's absolutely gorgeous. I cannot remember the fabric. It's a 40 count color and cotton that's stitched up. I mean, my stitches are so tiny on this that I think the dye process turned it into more like a 44 or 46 count, because my stitches are extra tiny on this one. And it might have felt like that at the time because I hadn't stitched for 6 or 7 days by the time I picked this up. But anyway, so yeah, I will put down here what the fabric is. I'll pull that information. So that is Stitchers for Peace by Yasmin's Made with Love. This was my first time stitching one of Yasmin's patterns, and it was good. It was really, really good. And I have lots more that I would very much like to stitch. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Just really, really beautiful. All the called for DMCs. Yeah, lovely. So there's that one. The next one is one of my biggest finishes of the year, and I am so geeked about it. I finished this on December 1st, and so this is Glory of Autumn by Dimensions. Dropped a pen there. So here it is. So I'm gonna leave it here center screen for a minute, just so we can all appreciate the glory and the beautiful. Whew. Yep, this is really quite stunning, isn't it? I'm so geeked about it. I'm so geeked about how it's showing up on camera. Like that's really lovely. You know, sometimes my full coverage pieces, they get spotty, but this looks really good. So this was my piece that I broke up into 12 this year. I chunked it up into 12 pieces and stitched it to the finish. It was a piece that I started in 2015, and I had a good chunk of this stitched, not back stitched, but this part was pretty well stitched, and so I had all of this to do. And so I took the height of the pattern and I split it up into 12, and so each of my sections was about 12 stitches high by the whole width of the design. And so that's how I broke this one up. In November, I put in some good work catching up on the back stitch, and in fact, I finished all of the stitching, all of the cross stitch and the half stitch. I finished all of that in November, so that in December I had just a little bit of back stitch and a couple of French knots to do, and it was done. I ended up finishing it in hand, actually. There was, on December 1st, I couldn't get it finished before Baby Does Stuff woke up in the morning, so I put on the movie that she's been hyper fixated on, and we watched a movie, and I finished stitching, which is why my signature isn't on here yet, because I've got to throw a little hoop on and do my signature. My signature is a Jessica stitch with an S in the middle of it and the year in Roman numerals, and I can't do that in hand. I'm not quite at the point where I can do specialty stitches in hand. But I did finish up the back stitch, and I did the French knots on the eyes in hand. I was really patting myself on the back, but don't look too closely, they're a little wonky. My French knots are always a little wonky, so you know, regardless, in hand or in a stand. It was also my first linen in hand experience, so I proved I could do it, at least for some back stitch or some long stitch. There are some places where I chose long stitch, so the back stitch in the water wheel, a lot of those are pretty long, as well as the these fence boards here are back stitched, but I couldn't really get it to work with honest back stitch, so it's a lot of long stitches. But I think it looks nice, and this is a piece that will be framed, and the only reason that it's not at the framer now is because I wanted to show it to y'all. So it's going to be framed, and so all of those long stitches they'll be just fine. They'll be just fine once it's stretched. I stitched this on 28 count antique white cashel linen. The kit came with a 14 count, I believe, antique white Ada, but for a multitude of reasons, I chose to swap out for the linen. I prefer linen over Ada stitching. Dimensions kits, the margins are always a little tight, and because a lot of my stitching happens in my Millennium frame, I need more fabric off the top. I can sew on a piece of fabric, but when I started this, I had no clue what to do with a sewing machine, so it was definitely worthwhile for me to switch the fabric out. And I also, Dimensions Kit Ada, I know that it softens up over time the more that you work with it, but at first it's so starchy that I get so frustrated. So anyway, that's why I made the substitution. The threads are 99% kit threads. I ran out of one of the greens towards the bottom, but that was a user thing. I'm fairly certain that it came with enough, but I wasn't frugal enough. I wasn't paying attention to my thread usage. You can't really tell the difference. I was able to find a DMC conversion. If you can tell the difference, then you are standing too close. Oh, so good. I estimate a total of 50 days to finish this over the course of the last 8 years. But that is truly an estimate, because I did not track the number of days I spent on a project prior to 2017. So your guess and mine are, it is what it is. 29 of those 50 days was this year. So it took me 29 days to do roughly 75% of this piece. That's just wild. But it took me 8 years from start to finish. In amongst the other projects that I have worked on over the years, I understand. But anyway, so all done. Oh, I'm in love. I love it so very much. and I am just pleased as punch to not only have this finished, but this was my last 2015 web. I have no more coming out of 2015. Still got a lot of 2016s to tackle and all the years after, but nonetheless, 2015 is done. So that's my Glory of Autumn. Oh, I love it. I love it so very much. So there is that. Okay, so let's get into plans. Now, I'll be honest, I brought no actual projects to show you today because, like I said, I'm getting ready to do a wet parade, and so you will see the works in progress at that point. It just, logistically speaking, showing them here and then again in a week, nah. Nah. So I'm going to be inserting some cover pictures for you to see what the things are that I'm talking about. So for the rest of the year, or for the rest of December, I have 2 new starts coming. The first one is happening this Sunday, so Christmas Eve, and I'm going to be starting either Hands-On Designs, Let's Talk Winter. It's the chalkboard seasonal series that Kathy put out quite a few years ago. I couldn't unbury my chart. It's in there. I know it is, but I couldn't find it. So I will insert a picture here of what that will look like. I have the 32 count slate linen from Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie to stitch that on. So I'm considering that, or Primrose Cottage has a winter series, or a seasonal series, excuse me. So I will insert the preview of that here, of the winter one. I thought about starting it yesterday for winter solstice, but I couldn't get it in gear to do that. So I'm gonna do a seasonal Sunday piece, and so whichever one I decide on, I'm kind of leaning towards the Hands-On Design only because I have the linen, the called for linen for that one, but we'll kind of wait and see. So I'm gonna start a winter seasonal piece on Sunday. Next Sunday is New Year's Eve, or 1, 2, 3, 12, 1, 2, 3, 31, 23. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And my particular brand of neurodivergence or neurospiciness or whatever you want to call it, I love a number pattern. I love a number pattern. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that's just too much fun. I had my C-section for Baby Does Stuff scheduled for 1/21/21, but she was born on 1/12/21, so like number patterns, I'm about it. Anyway, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I believe it was Kim Spartan Stitcher who pointed out that number pattern, and so a few of us are going to have a start to, I don't know, celebrate the number pattern day. And so I am going to be starting January Quilt by Paula Vaughn. I haven't started a new quilt since finishing the other 2 last year. And so I'm really excited to finally get one started. So this counts for 1, 2, 3 because January is the first month of the year. And so that's the number 1. The number 2 is it will be my second new start for the month of December. And 3, it is my 3rd quilt. Technically it's my 4th, but I UFO'd one. So it's my 3rd quilt. And so I'm really excited to get that one started. As far as New Year's Eve 12 by 12, at first I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But I think I might try to find a way to adapt it. I was watching Kate over at Making Things with String, and she was talking about doing 6 pieces, 2 hours a piece, and that just makes so much more sense in my brain. Switching every hour is just not feasible for me, but every 2 hours I could maybe do that. So I'm gonna toy with it and see if I can find a way to make that work. I don't know exactly what our New Year's Eve plans are, whether we're gaming on New Year's Eve or not, I don't know. But nonetheless, I am gonna start January quilt at the very least and go from there. So then we get to New Year's, and on January 2nd, I am going to have my New Year, New Start. I don't know what I'm doing New Year's Day, whether I continue with January quilt or I get going on all of my big plans for January. I don't know yet. But on January 2nd, I am going to be starting my New Year, New Start. And that is Santa's House by Cottage Garden Samplings. My mailman, at some point, somebody drove their car over my package, and so it got real wrinkled. But anyway, that's okay, not a big deal. So this is Santa's House, the first in the Fabulous House series by Cottage Garden Samplings. You know that this is a Cottage Garden Samplings stan channel, at least for those of you who've been with me for a while. I have A Year in the Woods on the go. I have her monthly series on the go. I have the Songbirds Garden series on the go. There was another series a couple of years ago that I have a couple of that I would like to stitch. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cottage Garden Samplings. So this I'm going to be starting on January 2nd. I think that I'm going to be stitching this whole series on 40 count linen because I have a ton of it. And so this first one I think I'm going to use, I haven't done any kind of floss toss or anything, but I think I'm going to use the Gray Stuff by Grace Knows Fabrics, which I did not bring to show you. So all of this will be revealed at a later date. But anyway, so that's going to be my New Year, New Start, even though it's happening on the 2nd. And the reason for that is that I have like 4 past projects that were started on the 1st, and so I'm just trying to spread it around a little bit. So this one's going to get started on the 2nd. So there's that. Okay. Up next is a plan for later down the line, but maybe y'all want to do this with me. 2024 is a leap year, so February has 29 days. And so I have seen the leap day cells and the leap day long dogs, and I love all of that. But I thought, and it might be influenced by this recent acquisition, but I thought leap day is a great day to start a unicorn. And I recently found one of my unicorns on eBay for reasonable pricing, and I'm really geeked about it. So let me take it out of the plastic. So I have had a save search for this for some time, and I'm sure that it's gonna get reprinted here. This is usually what happens when I buy an out of print pattern. It usually hits the reprint. So if y'all are waiting for this too, settle in. It may be available again here soon. But I picked up Sunflower House by Blackbird Designs. I have loved this forever, and I was so like jumping out of my seat to see it pop up on eBay for something I was willing to spend on it. So this is the Sunflower House, and I am geeked. So I'm going to be starting this on February 29th on Leap Day. I thought a Leap Day unicorn start, like that just makes sense, right? So there is that. I also have a new start happening on the first day of the Lunar New Year, and it is going to live in this most gorgeous project bag. And so if you are in the same boat, a little bit in love with the Fourth Wing, and if you are in the same boat as like wanting it to be November next year, so hopefully we can get book 3 along with me, then perhaps you appreciate this. So this is a bag by Jasmine's Custom Bags. Jasmine Genevieve is on Instagram and also FlossTube here, and she posted that she's got this fabric, and I said, oh, can I have a bag out of that? And so she put together a bag for me real fast. And I love the accent fabric. She said it's Andarna Gold, and I love it. And then, let's see, the inside is a black and white check. So, fantastic. I'm a big fan of this. So, that is the project bag. So, I was born in 88, in April of 1988, and that was a year of the dragon, and 2024 is also a year of the dragon for the most part, because Lunar New Year isn't until February sometime. So I'm going to be starting a new dragon full coverage. I think I have figured out which one. I think I'm going to go with Cherry Blossom Breezes by Carla Morrow. So a preview here of what this will look like finished. This is by Heaven and Earth Designs. I am also considering, I believe it's called Fall Dragon by Walking Melons, who's the one who did the Evolutions one for HAED. That information will be down here if I'm messing anything up, and a preview here of what it will look like finished. The only reason that I'm leaning towards Cherry Blossom Breezes is because, first of all, it's a color palette that is unfamiliar in my full coverage pieces. It's very light, it's very bright, and it's very springy, which I don't have a lot of spring. I have some, and I have a spring dragon. We'll see here in just a minute. But I don't have a spring full coverage piece. I have summer, I have winter, I have fall, I have lots of fall. But I don't have spring except for April. I have a lot of exceptions. Anyway, so I'm leaning towards that one because it's a very different color palette. It's been in my stash forever. I've had this chart forever. And so I think that I'm leaning towards that one. Do I want to start something with a black dragon? Yes. But we're gonna go with something else. So anyway, so stay tuned on the official front on that. I'm gonna put down here the start of Lunar New Year so that I can share with you when I'm starting that. So maybe if you want to start a dragon pattern with me to celebrate the year of the dragon, that's what I'm starting. Oh gosh, I love this bag. So exciting. Okay, let's get into the WIP Go plans and the kind of general overall plans that I have for 2024. I technically have 3 WIP Go boards. One of them is for books though, so that doesn't really count here. I have one main board that I'm going to be hyper focused on. It's going to be the majority of where I put my time in 2024. I have a secondary board that we will talk about as well. Okay, so I have teased the fact that I plan on doing 24 full coverage page finishes in the year 2024. It's going to work out to a lot more than that because my plan is to finish Personal Sunshine in 2024. And so that is the piece that I am breaking up into 12 to work on chunk by chunk each month to see the finish by the end of the year. As it stands, and I don't think I'm going to be working on it again before the beginning of the year, it will be 5,500 stitches a month to see Personal Sunshine finished by the end of the year. And I have 13 official pages left. However, the last column of pages is a strip of 10. So it counts for a page finish, but it's going to take no time at all to get those last 3 slow down, Jess. The last column of pages, that's not going to take hardly any time at all. So especially that bottom one, because the bottom row of pages is only a half height page, so that one's going to be really fast. I could do that in an afternoon. So that is 13 page finishes. And then I have all of my other full coverage pieces that I would like to get a page finish on at least. there's no way that I can possibly go forward and talk about my plans for 2024 without talking to you about something that I haven't mentioned yet on my channel. I have a secret stitch, and it is a full coverage piece. I am never going to show it here on my channel. I am probably never going to talk about it here on my channel, and it's going to take me a number of years to get it done. That is something that I'm going to be working on in the background, in addition to my other WIPGO full coverages. So, but I can't talk about my plans without mentioning that that's in there too. I'm hoping to get a couple of page finishes on that this year in 2024. So, but like I said, I'm never going to show it, and I will probably never talk about it again after today, because it's a secret stitch and I'm trying to keep it so. Okay, so let's go through my full coverage WIPGO board. What I did is I took Sad Secret Stitch out, and I took Personal Sunshine out, because if I add up all of my full coverage pieces, it's like 27 pages if I was to get one page on everything but Personal Sunshine. So I took Personal Sunshine off the WIPGO board, and I will be working on Personal Sunshine every month, Secret Stitch every month, and two full coverage pieces from my full coverage WIPGO board every month. So I'm going to insert here a preview of my full coverage WIPGO board. You will see some of these pieces listed on here twice, because if you take out Personal Sunshine and Secret Stitch, then that leaves me with 14 full coverages on the go, plus the Dragon New Start, so that's 15. That doesn't quite fill up a WIPGO board. And so a lot of these are listed twice, because if I'm trying to do 5,500 stitches on Personal Sunshine, 1,000 stitches on Secret Stitch, and we'll talk about that more here in a little bit, getting 2 other page finishes every month, it's not enough time, plus all the other stuff I'm trying to do. So I thought that in order to fill a full coverage WIPGO board, those pieces where I have a lot of a page finish left, I broke up into 2 spaces. And so when the first time it's called, for instance, April by Anna Dittman, that one I haven't even started on my next page. So the first time that one's called, I'll work on the first half of the page, and the second time it's called, I'll finish the page. So I'm looking at around tops 4,000 stitches for each of these. So we're talking max 8,000 stitches each month into these full coverage pieces. It's going to be a very full coverage focused year. And then everything else is kind of secondary. Still trying to do too much, but nonetheless, this is the main goal here, is for me to get at least a page finish on all of my full coverage pieces. The only exception to that will be that Dragon New Start. I may or may not get that page finish. I'm just going to be sure that I work on it a significant enough amount to feel like I get a really good start on it. Some of the full coverages that I started this year, I don't feel like got significant enough of a start, especially considering how large Haunted House is. So that is kind of the plan there. So the WIPGO board that I have up here is the one with the cover images stuck into it, because I'm all about a visual. So you will see there's some repeats and some that are all on their own. Some that I know that are all on their own. Over the River, Charting Creations pages are smaller than Heaven and Earth Designs, and so Over the River will, I should be able to get that page finish all on its own. Summer Montage, page 2 is only 3,500 stitches. That's less than half of a full page. And so that should be a fairly easy page finish all on its own. Little Wings has just a couple thousand stitches left of the page. I have a couple more that are only listed on there once, because they're either close to or just past the halfway page mark. So that's the plan there. As far as rewards go, one thing that's really important to me is to add the rewards layer. For 2023, I didn't do any rewards because I had 3 WIPCO boards, and so the reward, so to speak, was more intrinsic. It was just that satisfaction of having touched all of my projects within one calendar year. But I do think that extrinsic rewards are totally worthwhile. And I saw something come up on the WIPCO Facebook group recently when somebody was talking about what their reward system was. Each square is numbered 1 through 25. This is the text version, but you guys have seen the cover, the chart covers one. So each one of these is numbered 1 through 25. And so when I accomplish this square, I'm going to put $25 into an envelope. And when I accomplish this square, 24, etc., etc. And so at the end of the year, I can spend some money on some stitchy stuff, probably. And so I really like that. I mean, I've seen where people do X amount of dollars in an envelope for each bingo, but the actual square itself having a dollar amount, I really like that. So I'm gonna be doing that for this board. And so that is my primary board. That's the main board for me this year. So let's talk about my secondary board. This year, I got to touch all of my WIPs, and that was fantastic. That felt so good. It looks like I'm going to finish the year with, I think, 7 finishes. I think 7 finishes by the end of 2023. And I would very much like to have some more finishes next year. So my secondary board is finishes. It is legitimate, separate from full coverage finishes. This is going to be one of those situations where if I get to these things, awesome. And if I don't, that's awesome too. Because like I said, the full coverage one just has to be, it's got to be my focus. It's got to be the number one thing that I tackle. So this one is secondary. I also felt like it was important, with the primary focus being on full coverage, to have some palette cleanser things, some non-full coverage things, just to serve as a break, as and when I have the time for it. So I have 24, because I'm always about that free space. I have 24 things that I think I can finish next year, given the right amount of time. And so you're going to see that here. You're going to see that WIPCO board here, and it's got the chart covers in there. So here's how I went about developing this board. And maybe I'll insert a snapshot of this here. I have my Stitchy calendar. It is a digital thing. And on the right side, there is a table where I have all of my WIP's birthdays, so to speak. So for instance, Autumn Fairy by Chatelaine is January 1st. And so you'll see that listed next to the number 1 on that table. And so I flipped through each one of those months, and I picked one that was the closest to a finish, or the one that I thought I could finish with a little bit of time given to each of them. So I got 12. I pulled 12 from that way. Then I added in the rest of the monthly Quakers by From the Heart Needle Art by Wendy. And we'll talk about that again here in just a minute when I talk to you about one of my other plans. But so I have January through March finished. April is over halfway done. If I spent time on it at the end of this month, then I would finish it before the end of the year, but I think I may just save it for next year because of this WIPCO board. And so April Quaker through December, that's 9. So we are up to 21 from there. So then I looked through the rest of my WIPs at some other things that I thought I could finish. And so in amongst that list is, I know for certain, the 2023 Collector's Heart, Horror Movie Alphabet, there are several things on this list that weren't either one of the ones I picked for my stitch calendar or the monthly Quakers. And so I was able to fill a board with things that, given some effort, I could maybe finish this year. My goal on this WIPGO board is not necessarily to finish it. It's just to put stitches into these projects that are close to a finish. So I'm going to mark these complete whether I finish them or not, just so long as they get stitches into them. With the monthly Quakers, I have no intentions of... So for instance, if December Quaker is called for me in January, I'm not going to start it, much less finish it in January. That will come once I get to the end of the series. I'm going to start with April Quaker and we'll go from there. If for whatever reason I'm in the mood to work on Dumbo by Manor Designs, then and I finish that in January, but it's not called until November, that's okay. I'll mark it finished ahead of time. So this one's going to be my not very stringent with the WIPGO rules board. So, like I said, it's my secondary board. If I ignore the thing, if I work on the thing, what have you, I would like to make some time to try to get some finishes because I don't love only 7 finishes for this year. I don't love that. That's not something I love for me. So I think that perhaps putting at least some mental energy towards finishes. Who knows? Maybe it'll work out. Especially in these first couple of months when I'm super gung-ho and I'm like, yes, we're going to knock out all the goals. Ask me again in July. I might change my mind. Okay. So we have WIPGO. We have my Break It Up into 12. Do y'all watch Sammy J Stitches? She's my stitchy bestie. And this year she has done something that she has called her main characters. They are pieces that she has put at least a little bit of effort into each month. Not necessarily to see the project finished by the end of the year. I think that 1 or 2 of them she did get finished by the end of the year. But for the most part, it was just to make progress on either a struggle bus piece or just those pieces that are so gargantuan that you just feel like you need to make some regular progress on just to count for something, just to keep traction going. I love this idea. I really, really love this idea. So, as if everything that I have just explained is not enough, I'm also going to be doing something akin to that. And so I have some pieces that I'm going to be making some small efforts on every month to progress them along. So the first of those is Secret Stitch, and my hope is to get about 1,000 stitches into that each month. And that is something that I might put on a Nurge or a Q-Snap and do as my like daily 100 or TV stitch or something like that. So we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. So we'll see. My second project, my second focus piece, my second piece in this category. I need to come up with a name for this. So my second one of these is the monthly Quaker series by From the Heart Needle Art. And so my plan for that is to do one large motif, at least one large motif each month. And it may work out that I want to do more than that, but at least one large motif. Each of them has about 3 large motifs, give or take. So I think that's a good way to break that up, and then I'll work on the little ones alongside. So there's that. That is a piece that is always on a Q-Snap. That is my grab and go project, if you will, because it's only 3 colors. It's a pretty easy one. I've stitched on that at airports, etc., etc. So there's that. Okay. My third project for this Break It Up is Touching the Autumn Sky. And my goal for that is 500 stitches a month. I would really love to finish this project by the end of the year because I am feeling super guilty that I have this piece on loan and I haven't finished it yet. I have not frogged the skin on my failed attempt, my UFO attempt. And so I'm going to try to work on that from here until the end of the year. Like if I've got a few minutes, but not enough time to stitch, etc., etc., I may try to work on getting that skin frogged. I do have the backup linen if I decide to just restart it, but I would really like to not restart it. I really like to not have to do that. So that's the plan there. 500 stitches a month on Touching the Autumn Sky. Also, 500 stitches a month is Ragnarok. So that's my fourth piece. My fourth piece is Ragnarok. I cannot possibly put my long dogs away for the whole year. I can't do it. And so trying to find a way to get Ragnarok worked in there, that was important to me. I had to choose one of my long dog pieces. And so I went with that one. And so that one is going to get 500 stitches a month, I think is what I set it at. So there's that. My fifth piece is one of the pieces that I considered for my break it up into 12 for the year, but making 2024 a full coverage year for me, I couldn't justify that. It made more sense for me to try to finish Personal Sunshine next year. So my fifth piece for this small goals each month is Summer Sampler by Kohler Design Studio. Y'all have heard me wax on and on about how much I love that piece. And so I am really excited to work on it every month. It's only going to be 300 stitches a month. I basically tried to create these goals, with the exception of Secret Stitch, as something I could maybe accomplish in a day or a day and a half at most. Ragnarok, like 500 stitches, easy for me to do 500 stitches in a dedicated day. Summer Sampler, because it is color changes and it is more mentally taxing, I thought 300 stitches was a reasonable goal to work on it every month. It's certainly not going to finish the piece by the end of the year, but it will make perhaps the 2025 finish very, very feasible. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really excited to work on that piece. If you take my full coverage pieces, of which I currently have 16, so my active full coverage pieces, for which I have 16, if you add in my active whips from my Focus on a Finish board, and my 2016 whips not otherwise included in either of these two lists, and my small goal focus pieces that aren't otherwise on this list, if you add all that together, that's 36 whips. And so I have decided that everything else is up on the shelf temporarily. This year, 2023, was about touching all of my whips. Next year is about making significant progress on my whips. But I can't possibly make significant progress on all of them. There is not enough time for that. And so I decided to limit my whip list down to just those 36. Because more focused effort will see more significant stitching into each of them, as opposed to spreading myself too thin as I did here in 2023. Getting some stitches into everything is great, but I don't love that I'm working on some pieces that aren't going to see any more than 600 or 700 stitches this year. I don't love that. I have self-proclaimed that I'm a progress stitcher. So the idea is that everybody falls into the camp of a process stitcher or a product stitcher. You either stitch because you love it and you don't really care about the finishes, or you stitch for finishes. I kind of sit somewhere in the middle. I don't need finishes, but I also like to see progress. I like my before and afters. I do my before and afters in all of my update videos, and so I like it to be significant enough between the two to justify the editing, and also just for my own personal feelings about it. I like to see that progress. And so I'm hoping that 2024 is going to be the year where I see the progress even if it means that 60% of my projects never see the light of day. Now, this is not going to be a scenario where I have these 36 whips and that's it until I finish something, then I add in something else. It's not going to be anything like that. I'm just starting with these 36 where I'm hoping to get some significant effort into them. And I will add in other whips as and when I see fit. I actually think I may be starting with 37 now that I think about it, because I told y'all that I'm having this seasonal Sunday start on Christmas Eve. And so that feels like something I should be continuing into the new year. Although amongst everything else I'm trying to do, maybe that's silly. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I will make that decision. But this is the plan. Full coverage. I'm all about full coverage in the year 2024. Full Coverage Fanatics has a lot of great events coming up, and I'm really excited to work on those. I am really excited for WhipGo to get started, for which I'll be posting the numbers on Christmas morning on Monday. I'm really excited for those. I am currently very optimistic about 2024 and what it might look like for me for stitching. I'm looking forward to working on some of these projects again. I am in the final push. I have 2 projects that are halfway to their WhipGo goals left, and then I will black out all 3 of my boards. I've blacked out 1. These last 2 projects will black out the other 2. I am so excited. I am so ready. And so I will have those blacked out tomorrow, I think. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, I'm just ready to work on these full coverage pieces. I have been staying away from full coverage to help build up the anticipation and the excitement for next year. I do have 2 more full coverage pieces to work on before the end of the year, but it's not going to be huge progress on either of them. It's just a little bit to be sure that I do, in fact, work on all of my whips this year. So much fun. So that is it for the plans video. That is it for my plans for 2024. If it was clear as mud and you're curious, feel free to ask any questions you might have in the comment section below. And I will be back before, I'm hoping that I can get it posted before New Year, but it may be New Year's Day by the time I get it posted with my whip parades. So it's about to be whip parade season, y'all. So get your popcorn ready, get your needles ready, because whip parade season is upon us, and it's just so much fun. FlossTube is humongous these days, and with everybody doing their Flossmas and their plans videos, and whip parades are coming. If you know, I mean, they've already started, but we're about to be run over by them. It's a busy time for FlossTube, and so I'll see you in mine. All right, y'all. I'm gonna head off here. Happy stitching, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I will see you in the next one. As always, be kind.